Sure. Good morning from the studio in Fairfax City. We are very grateful that Mark Trueck accepted our invitation to our show. Mark, welcome to my humble podcast.
Thank you so much, I feel very humbled. Thank you.
No problem. Let's go back to something that is very important to you now. How is the cafe recovery going? Feel free to elaborate on what happened with the weather in the Philippines, and then you are trying to put that together again, and it's complicated.
Okay, are you talking about where I am in Thailand? I'm in
That's right.
Thailand.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the restaurant and how we're clawing our way back.
Right.
It's been a very tough 2 years because in those 2 years, we've had two different types of floods, and the floods happened due to uh, the Chinese letting their water go at the wrong time with their dams because they built new dams, and that water eventually went into the Mekong and took out many villages along, in Laos and also into Thailand. So we've we're struggling, but we've downsized to a point where it's just family members now that are running the restaurant instead of we've employed people. We just can't afford it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But it's been really tough. Uh, I'm planning to do a showcase late June, July of my new solo album, which is coming out in October. But
Gotcha.
here I'm going to do it because we do have bands here
Gotcha.
every day. And so this is known for a place for people to come and see bands, but traditional Thai bands. So I'm incorporating uh, a combination of foreigners and Thai people as a part of this new band that I'm putting together here. So to help raise funds and awareness of the tragedies that happen, not just in Thailand, but as we've seen across the world, we've seen many, many bad floods, earthquakes, the whole works. We've seen it's
Yeah.
happening right across the world. We're not an isolated situation. I'm just trying to expose it a lot more and make people aware that, many countries struggle after things like this, and it's a very long process to try and claw back that money that you've lost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And unfortunately, yeah, we live not only that, but we live in very complicated now as I don't know, as a
Yes.
human society. Maybe we're doomed. I don't know. Music can
Oh, I don't
save
know
us.
about that. I don't think we're doomed, but I think we need to wake up a bit. I think
Oh,
we got
sure,
we got
sure.
too many politicians trying to push their egos to another area, but I won't go into that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
no. Yeah, I understand. But peace in the world in general, peace, right?
yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Sometimes you
as
watch the news.
John
Yeah,
John Lennon was one of the biggest advocates of giving peace, and his focus still lives on in everybody. I mean, Ringo still lives on the
absolutely.
peace. It's
Sign.
so
Yeah,
so important.
yeah. All right, let's go back to the beginning of your life. Were you born like in a musical family? I mean, how music
No,
got to you? Or
no. My father was in the Merchant Navy, and he was a waiter, but he was also a bit of an entertainer. And he never delved into music. He liked music, but he never delved into it. My brother, also in the entertainment industry, also he's a drummer and he's in several bands back in Adelaide. But no, I never, I wanted to pursue music at school because I liked it, but my parents didn't identify that with me. So I really started to. I loved going into in the 70s and this late 60s and 70s. I loved going into record shops and listening to obscure music. I mean, I found some of the most. I mean, I found the first Yes album. I mean, and I thought, oh, these guys sound really different. And whilst everybody in my community were listening to pop music, I was listening to the strangest music around at the time, and which includes. Saucer Full of Secrets from Pink Floyd. I was listening to all of that early stuff. So I, I, as I said, I didn't play any instruments, and I didn't know that I had a voice really until I auditioned when I went to Victoria. I was traveling around Australia surfing, and I stayed at this really beautiful place called Point Lonsdale, and there was a surf club there, and they had a band which were called the Flying Saucers, and they did reggae, Peter Tosh and Bob Marley, and they did Pink Floyd. And I thought, wow, this is a different type of band. So I auditioned and I did echoes with them. And we played the local pub every weekend. But it wasn't stimulating enough. So after I left that place, I never got involved in a band until I joined EMI back in 1985. I joined EMI Virgin as an executive salesman, and we then that year in '86, Virgin signed Peter Gabriel and also Genesis all in the same year, and so it was like wow, I'm in a record label that actually has those two bands, but then I realized we also had Pink Floyd as well. So it was that was the starting point of me really starting to think about. And then I put a band together called the Genesis Touch. And I had pre-recorded cassettes of the Invisible Touch. So I was actually performing those songs before Genesis came to Australia. And I got permission to do this band and call it the Genesis Touch because I worked for EMI Virgin. So I got the clearance from their management to be able to do it. And in fact, I have a photograph, if you want to see it, I have a photograph of
Sure.
Genesis and of course it was interesting when I caught up with Chester for the first time in 2023 when we did a jam together over in Chicago. And he remembered me. It was just quite remarkable after all those years.
Wow.
Just hang on a minute. Just
Sure, no
bear with
problem.
me.
Sure.
So this photograph was taken at
Oh
at
yeah.
Football Park, and
Yeah,
you'll see me right at the back, and
that's right.
Chester's down on your side. It's on the right hand side, and you'll
Correct,
see
correct.
him
Yeah.
on there, and he's got hair there. But
Yeah.
this photograph he remembers, and he also remembered, the barbecue we had. It was just a great evening, and this was a pre like a pre what would we call it? A pre launch of before the band went on stage, and we hung out with them and we had a great time. So
Yeah.
that's a sort of a sketch of how it all started, and then meeting Sean through a friend of mine who worked with EMI. Sean obviously the keyboardist for Unitopia and Southern Empire, and a few other projects that he has. Sean's a genius in his own right. And when we got together, and we were introduced, we had our first little sort of get together and we played around the piano and we created a song called More Than a Dream, which
Yeah.
was on the first album and the title of the album. So
Sure.
he just said, "Oh, we've got to work together. We've got to work together," and we did. I mean, we had a bit of a break in 2013, but we overcome a few issues and we moved forward. And of course, um, we got together, we did a new song to launch the More Than a Dream box set, which
Yeah.
was Dream Complete, and that helped along the way. So
Good for you. Yeah, good for you. And of course, we are talking about Unitopia, which is an Australian music group using progressive rock as a framework, but including element of world classic jazz,
yes,
hard rock
yes.
groove. It's hard to describe exactly, pinpoint what the band is about, but it's great music. And you bring in different elements and you glue it together, and it's very cohesive, and it's great music, man.
Yeah, well, Sean and I were very deliberate in what we wanted to try to achieve. We did. I didn't want to. I mean, many people would come up to us and say, "Why doesn't Sean use much of the Hammond?" And uh, for me, the Hammond is being used almost in every prog band that I know. And I said to Sean that instead of using the licks that you would normally use in an arrangement with a Hammond, why not just use piano? Because piano never dates. And he said, okay. And so there would be some Hammond, but it is not suffocating the music. And I always used to say to him, he's the guru and the director of the music, but I suppose, as he's always said, that I'm the guy who has the ideas and creates the melody idea that would work, and then he would come to me and all this this building block of different styles was always on the top of our list to try and do, and I think we achieved it. And
Absolutely.
moving to now, adding the wonderful John Greenwood, whose background is a genius doctor, professor in his own right. He's an Order of Australia, but he's also a brilliant musician as well. And Steve Unruh, who to me is probably one of the most underrated musicians in the world. He plays violin like a man possessed, and he plays great guitar, and he plays great bass, he plays great drums, and he plays great flute. So he sings really well. I mean, we've worked together on UPF, which is the other projects that I do. So and the thing is, then you add Chester and Don, and of course
Yeah,
we had Alfonso on the original album, but Don's a brilliant bass player, and he's also a good writer. So you now got 6 writers, and in the early Unitopia, it was really Sean and I, and then a little bit of John, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah. I
So,
know. Yeah.
uh, I thought, well, the thing with what we've got now to where we were before, we're still developing ideas for something fresh and new. I think you will hear in the future some very different ideas, and that's what all musicians want to do. We all want to not be the same every album. I mean, Steve Wilson's a good example of that. I mean, he's delved into pop, he's delved into prog, he's jazz, he's got everything in there, and he's also another genius of our times in the prog world. But you know, we're all different. We've all got different ideas, and we're no different. We want to be, we want to evolve. We're at our later parts of our life. I mean, look, if I'd have done this 40 years ago, God knows what would have happened. you
That's
know?
right. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. And then after, let's go in chronological order. After you guys, put together the More Than Dream, you end up launched that in October 2025, a sellout audience in the Cavern Club, right? At the time,
So, well, say again, in what year
no,
was
no, no.
that?
What happened more for the debut album, More Than a Dream? You end up independently launched in October 2025 to a sellout audience in the
Oh,
Cavern
alive
Club,
and
right?
kicking, yeah, alive and
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
the alive and kicking. Are you talking about the alive and kicking in 20 this year we've released? You
No,
mean?
no, no. In October 2005, when you
Oh,
end up releasing the album.
2005,
2000, right.
yes. Oh,
20.
sorry. I thought
Yeah,
you
it's
said
okay.
2025.
Oh,
Beg
no,
my
no,
pardon.
no.
No, no, no. Well, yes, in 2005 we launched the album, but it
Yeah,
took us 9 years to make. And the reason being is because I was working with EMI and I traveled all over the world doing various promotional things and A&R things. And I wasn't always in Adelaide to do the recording and sit with Sean. And Sean had his day job to do as well.
yeah.
So it did take a long time. However, when we finally launched it at the Cavern Club in Adelaide, which was also my birthday. It was
All
my
right.
50th birthday as well. So there
Wow.
you go. So 50 years old, and we're releasing an album. Sean's a lot younger. He was 42. So, uh, uh, and, Unicorn were the first label that we went with Michelle. And I love Michelle. He's a lovely, lovely guy. And of course, over time, as you know, the next project, The Garden.
That's right. Yeah. And
And that took us 2.5, 3 years, which was a lot less, and it was a
mm,
double album.
yeah, that's a very good album. So what was the time in between? Because you were working for EMI and traveling around the world, and show had a day job as well. It took 2.5 years to put the second album, right? That's what you.
Yeah, well, what was happening is that towards with EMI, I basically I went from I left EMI in 1992. But when I went to Sega, which is the games people, and then I was with BMG
Yeah.
for a little while as well. So this is when I moved to Sydney as well. So I didn't see much of Sean when I moved to Sydney. We did a lot of stuff over the net, as you can, but it was I think when I moved out of the record industry and went into the technology industry, which is when I was with Legend, when I started doing a lot of traveling. But I started to balance it more, and then it was easier for me to hang out with Sean on the weekends. We would get up early in the morning, start at 7:30, and we might finish at midday. So we had about 4 or 5 hours of working together. So that's why things changed. I was the one that was doing all the traveling, changing jobs. Sean was a musician full time, and he did a lot of jingle writing for TV, and he did film work as well. So we had our mainstay income coming in from our day jobs. And so the music was a sort of a side thing, and we would have loved if we made a hit record. We would have loved to have made it a full-time thing.
I got you. And then in August 2008, Unitopia signed a 3 album deal with Inside Out Music at the time, right?
We did, yes, and that's where we started with the garden, and we're very proud of the garden. And we uh, when we actually writing the song "The Garden," it was a really lovely story. Sean had played it to me the first half of it, and he said, "What do you think?" And we're at the 13-minute mark, and I said, "Oh, it's great. It's got it. It flows. It does everything." And he says, "But what are you doing?" He says, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what the next step is." And I said, "Well, you've got these lyrics here. why don't we use those and do an acoustic part, which is finally knowing where we're bound. That
Yeah.
part of the song
Yeah.
came with this 12 string which he got, and he played that himself. And then we continued the last half of it, and that became the garden, which has it's proven to be a very popular track. When we go out live, everybody wants to hear the garden.
Right. Absolutely. And that's a double CD with 15 tracks and over 100 minutes of music. I
Yes,
think at the
yes,
time
yes.
you received great reviews. I was,
Very good reviews. We're
yeah,
very
yeah,
proud, and it sort of took us by surprise because we left Unicorn and bless Michelle, but I think we wanted a little bit more exposure because we did get good reviews for More Than a Dream. They're not as many as we got with the garden, but we got good reviews. They weren't bad, and we thought, well, maybe we're onto something here, you know. And
sure.
so, yes, it's done very well for us.
I got you. And then, so what was the next step, right? If you were kind of known in Australia and you were getting good reviews for Melody Making, another magazine of the world, was kind of the next step was go to either tour in Europe, tour in the United States. What
Well,
was the next
yeah.
step?
Well, the thing was, one of the things that did give us exposure that many
Yeah.
people might not know is that in 2000, I've got to be remembered about this. I think it was 2006. We had a disaster in Tasmania with the Beaconsfield mining collapse, and two of the miners were collapsed under for 321 hours. There is a song on the garden called 321 Hours.
Oh, I
And we
see.
wrote that, and there is a video of that on the double DVD that we released. We'll go to that later. But it actually, I got in contact with one of the survivors, and Brant Webb, and there's Todd Russell, but Brant Webb I got in touch with. I spoke to his wife Rachel, and I said, I've just written this song called Trapped, and basic lyrics of Trapped, and we were actually going to record it. And then the news was coming out that they were trapped for 321 hours. And I thought, let's change the name of the song to
Right.
321 hours and make that as a part of the hook of the song. And so what made that really interesting was that I Brant and I got on so well that he said to me, hey, what about we do a 1 year anniversary and you come down and play live? And I said, oh, it costs a lot of money to do all that. And he goes, don't worry, I'll sort it out. And I go, okay. And Channel 9, who was virtually their, I suppose, their partner, because they were under contract with Channel 9 with everything that went on, they were very keen on the idea. So we actually got 60 Minutes in, which is a very well-known show in America and here, or I should say in Australia, and they recorded Brant and Todd and Rachel coming in to sing the chorus, which they do on the actual song. And
Actually, yeah.
so that is very special, and that did give us exposure. And we played live down there, and Beaconsfield's got a population of 600 people. There are 3,500 people there for the show. They came from everywhere. We had Japanese TV, we had TV from New Zealand, and then all around Australia. So it was documented very, very well because for them to survive, it was just wow, amazing. They're heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good for you, man. And then a couple years later, a couple members, right? Shireen and Mike end up leaving, right? And then Sean, um,
Sean
Peter
Duncan, Sean
Rydell, and that
Duncan,
was
yeah, Peter Idle, Sean Duncan
yeah,
came in, and we had a new drummer as well. And yes, they came in and we started recording. Well, Shireen had other commitments, and that's why she couldn't continue. But when we started Artificial, it was something that Sean and I and Matt went down to York Peninsula, and we were coming up with the idea of, you know, how we've all become artificial in so many different ways. AI is now proven to be true, as we're all seeing right in front of our eyes right now. And just before I finish that story, the new box set, Artificial box set, is coming, and there's a song called Losing Our Identity, which will be a brand new song that'll be on that box set. But now back to Artificial. So we went down, and Matt had his telescope, and we're in this real science fiction mode. We escaped Adelaide and went down to a place called York Peninsula, which is where I surf, and it was where we started the first ideas of writing Artificial. So I wrote a whole swag of things, gave it all to Sean, and Sean turned my mumbo jumbo into really nice, interesting lyrics. Hence the likes of Tesla, you know, Artificial World, Suffocation, all these things. So yeah, that album was born, and when that happened in 2010 was a very big year because I was working for a new company which was doing solar film technology, and I had to go to Germany. And unfortunately, I had to cancel Rosfest because I went over there. We had some complications with Peter Riddell, and also with Sean Duncan, which I won't go into because it's a little bit personal. But it just stopped us in our tracks. And because I was over in Germany and the album was about to be released while I was in Germany, many German reviewers knew that I was there because obviously I told them, oh, I'm coming to Germany. And I did a lot of interviews over there, which was great, which all worked well. And then the volcanoes happened and we were stuck in Germany and couldn't go to Israel, which is where we were going afterwards, because our manufacturing plant for the film was actually in Israel. And so we couldn't fly out because of all of the ash. And so we were stuck there. So we drank German beer every day. And I tell you what, I looked like a Stein by the end of it, I can tell you. It was just overwhelming. But in saying that, during that time, we started recruiting a new band together. Enter David Hopgood, and Craig, and then we just didn't know what to do about the sax because Peter couldn't tour. So it's not that he didn't want to; he just couldn't from family's point of view. So then we started putting out our feelers, and we were about to sign off on Amy Winehouse's sax player, and just about to do that, and then a last person came in, enter Ian Ritchie. And I remember the conversation with him, and I said, well, you've got quite a good background here. You've played with Roger Waters, you've played with Steve Hillage, you've played with the Beach Boys. He's done production for these guys, and I thought, wow, this is quite amazing. And then I said, but you're going to cost us too much. And he says, how much have you got? So I told him how much, and he goes, that's okay. I'm going to enjoy this. And I went, really? Okay. So I won't tell you how much it was because that's a bit personal. But the bottom line here is that he absolutely loved it, and we loved him. So yes, in 2010, we managed to go and do Summer's End and tour Europe, and we did we did a TV show as well, which was great.
Yeah, no, that's a great tour, and I was doing some research for the interview, and that the Garden of the Dream tour in Europe 2020 which include the Summer End Festival, right? The Progressive Rock in
Yes,
England.
yes.
It was very well received and great reviews, man.
Yeah, well, the that particular one, Steve, who runs it, with Hugh, uh, we weren't a headliner, but we ended up being a headliner crowd. In fact, everybody that was at Summer's End was there. There was no one, and it was jam packed. And we didn't know what to expect. Really, we didn't. It was our first tour. We had no idea. I got the flu, and so I was quite scared about playing because I just didn't know whether the voice would hold on with having a scratchy voice and the flu. But it actually, it turned out that by the time that we'd finished, there was no problem, and I must have lost about 2 gallons of water. I sweated so much.
Yeah.
But we all ended up getting this flu. And guess who gave it to us? Mr. Ian Ritchie. We thank you for that, Ian. So anyway, that was the starting point of saying, well, we've got something quite special here.
Mm. And then, so what do you go from there? I mean, you did very well in the festival, and then,
We went to Europe.
yep.
We went Germany, and we went to to Holland, and we went to Belgium, and we did a further 2 more shows in the UK after but that was on the way back. That was at the Lumina, was one of them, and I remember Steve Wilson being there. He came to watch us, which was really cool, and uh, but we did this gig at the local Netherlands TV station, which had a, a viewing audience of over 1.5 million people, which was pretty cool. And it was a variety show, and it was all spoken in Dutch, so I didn't understand a word, in between what they were talking about. But
Yeah.
we did 5 songs, and 2 of them were used in the video, and that was a really wonderful acoustic versions of songs. And Nothing Lasts Forever, Angelica. They were just really lovely songs to play acoustically. Reflections was another. So we had a great time there, and look, it was a very rewarding show. We all loved it.
Got you. Good for you, man. And a couple years later, in 2012, you ended up releasing the fourth album, Over the Mirror, Volume 1, right? Which
We
is a very good
Yes, we
album.
raised the covered mirror. Now, this was something that I stated to Sean. I said, if we can do covers, we've got to make them unrecognizable. Now, in the end, maybe 1 or 2 are unrecognizable to a point, but my vision for doing a covers has always been that it's got to be unique. And Sean's played covers for most of his life. He's a very prolific musician, playing in all sorts of bands, Supernova. He's played in the Bon Jovi cover band. He's got quite a few, Steely Dan. There's a whole swag of different styles. I I liked making the album, but I listened to it a little bit, and I think we could have done this, we could have done that. And I suppose the question's been asked many times, will we do volume 2? Well, the only way that I will do a volume 2 is if it really is unrecognizable, so that people go, I thought I knew that song, but no, it's not it. That's how I'd like it to be, where people
That's,
go, wow, that's a really different idea.
mm,
And it's time as well. We're not getting any younger. We're
yeah.
we're we're moving on in age, and the thing is, what we've got to understand is that you know making music will take time and money to do, and
Mm,
we're all living in different parts of the world, so it makes it. I mean, it's easy to do which I'm doing right now, where
Mm.
sending files,
Back and forth,
go
yeah,
and
right.
mix it. It's all easy to do that these days. You couldn't have done that 25 years ago, you know.
Sure,
So,
sure.
but yes, a covered mirror, and it went number one on the pirate ship charts for 2 weeks in a row, which blew us both away. And that's in the UK, and it stayed on their charts for I think it was 10 weeks. So that was pretty good. That did make me feel good about it. But you know, at the end of the day, it's covers, and we don't reap any rewards for it. I can
Yeah.
tell you, four of the artists who originally wrote them, Ivor Davis, Icehouse, um, uh, he's heard the song Man of Colours. Alan Parsons has heard To One in Paradise and he liked it. The guy from Corgis, Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime, has heard it. And the other one was Roger Hodgson's heard Even in the Quietest Moments. So, you know,
Wow.
we're all very happy that that's happened and they didn't say, oh, no, it's a heap of shit or anything like that. But at least, you know, we've been recognized and that's great, you know.
Yeah. In general term, Mark, how difficult is to make a living as a musician in the sense that people make money touring, but you guys are all over the world, so it's hard to tour, and somebody need to be a booking agent, or somebody who wanna take you to class, and fewer people are buying music.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
it's
everybody wanna
very,
stream and so on and so
yes,
forth, and
yes, it's very difficult. We would love to tour every week, be honest with you. We love it. In fact, the Alive and Kicking um, live set, which is out now.
yeah.
Doing that tour with Chester, Don, and John, and Steve,
Mm,
and Sean was magic. Chester quoted that's one of the best tours he's ever been on. And I said, well, you can't say that. You've played in front of 600,000 people in Rome. And he
sure.
goes, yeah, but you guys are like being at home. It's just you you know he just loves that comradeship. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you know, in some places, obviously when he traveled with the band, you know, if you're a hired hand, you're not seen as a part of the band. We made we made Chester feel very, very welcome, as we did with Don and Steve. And the thing is, it was John's first ever tour. And so John
Well,
was the man who said, we should get Chester Thompson to play for us. And
mm,
he wrote him a letter. And next thing you know, we've got Chester Thompson. And then Chester said, we should get Alfonso. So, you know, that's another story. But getting back from a touring aspect, I mean, if we look at One Night in Europe, versus Alive and Kicking. Both Sean and I have come a long way since then, but you know they're both equal in every single way, just different
mm,
musicians. But to me, there's magic in both.
absolutely, absolutely. I had the opportunity to interview Chester late last year. I remember he's a very good person, very
He is
humble guy, very
very,
quiet,
he is,
very good human being, like the Steve Hackett of this world. Very very
he
good people.
is,
You know,
he is.
within
He's
5 minutes
just,
you can tell he's a very
yeah,
decent guy.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, he
yeah,
is. He's just absolutely fantastic, and
yeah, he's a
so
good guy.
you know. And generally
Mm,
kind-hearted,
sure,
absolutely
sure. Yeah,
kind-hearted.
I will make sure that I forward this interview to Chester. That now we are talking about him because
Yeah.
he's we never met in person, and but he's a very very good guy. So then yourself with with Utopia with Matt William, you end up putting another band together, United Progressive Fraternity, right?
Yeah, so Sean and I had uh, a sort of a sabbatical. We had a disagreement about a particular thing, which it's past now. So, but
Sure.
the beauty of it was that we did both agree that we should take the Unitopia album, which was called Turn Left, stroke Turn Right, which was going to be released in 2014, we would take half the songs each and release an album under a new name. Now, I'd already developed UPF way back in 2008. I started working with a chap called Steve Layton, and he wrote arrangements which were about over an hour and a half long. And it was then when Steve said to me, I want to send this to John Anderson, which was a track called Water. And I want to send this to John, and I want him to sing some backing vocals on it. And I said, okay. And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think that was going to happen, even though that Steve had worked with John on the Survival album. So next thing you know, he sends back an arrangement with John's voice on it. And he sent it whilst Sean and I were still together at that time. And we were quite amazed. So that was eventually going to be on a part of the Unitopia as a guest. But what had happened is that when Sean said he's going to form Southern Empire, I then decided that I would use the songs and take the Water and also another song, Religions of War, which I wrote with Matt. And Matt did the engineering and the editing and production of the end. And Fall in Love with the World was born. And all those songs were going to be a part of the next Unitopia album as the Southern Empire one. Now, one thing that we did cross over with is that Sean was releasing How Long and I was releasing Intersection, which was the same song. But I wanted to register the name of this so that it wouldn't conflict with what Sean's doing, because his arrangements are slightly different. We changed a few things, but it was still that song. And we did perform it as Unit DB at Rosfest in 2017 as How Long. And we did it with Danny and I doing a duet, which was really cool.
Yeah. And then you end up releasing the Fall in Love with the World album at the time, right?
Yes, with Inside Out Music.
Gotcha. Good for you, man. In 2016, the two of you with Sean, put the difference together, the different aside, I don't need to know about, and have written a new written for the set, Dream Complete, right?
Yes,
which is a very,
we
very
wrote
good
Dream.
album.
Yeah, well, the Dream Complete ended up, we put on songs from the Decameron, which wasn't really well known, and we put on The Outsider, which was also another Marco Bernard's projects, and we felt that they deserved to be heard a lot more, and we found all these other dance mixes, all sorts of things, and we wrote this new piece based around a loop that Matt Williams had done of his guitar, and we thought, let's use that. And so we used that guitar loop, and the Dream Complete, I wrote the lyrics probably in about an hour, showed them to Sean, and he said, yep, good, they're right. And so that song was born. And it's a song that I would love to revisit and perhaps even do it live, because it's quite a groove type song, but I think we could have had something more to it.
I got you. And then the two of you put another band together, the Unit, right? The Unit DB, I believe it's
Yes,
called.
so Unit DB was formed when Sean and I had sort of said that, hey, we're going to play Rosfest, and it's going to be a surprise, and we didn't want to go as Unitopia because I wanted to bring some different musicians. And Sean suggested, why don't we get Danny from Southern Empire and Brody from Southern Empire? And I said, well, let's get Steve Unruh as well. And so we have a 5-piece band, And I've got to tell you that that was a lot of fun, although this was the early signs of my medical problems that I was getting, which didn't tell me until after the show, but I actually froze on the first couple of minutes of doing one day where I just didn't know what it was. My mouth went dry, I collapsed, my legs collapsed, and I had to just take a couple of gobbles of water. And then I said, guys, can we just forget that song and go straight into one day? And with the audience, while this was all happening, I turned it into a humorous situation by saying, I'm having an Adele moment, where she stopped the orchestra that she had playing for her halfway through because they were doing it in the wrong key. And so she stopped. And so I said,
Oh,
I'm having an Adele moment. And they don't know what's wrong with me, but that was the first sign of I was having a heart attack.
yeah.
No
It's,
one knew
yeah.
that. No one knew that. No one.
Wow.
So,
Hey,
so that's an exclusive for you.
yeah. How you doing nowadays, Mark, health-wise? How you?
Well, so if we just, I'll quickly tell you, after that, I didn't think much of it. But when we got to 2019, I felt my legs were starting to um, strange feelings, numbness in the feet. So I went to the doctors and I got a scan, and they said, "Oh, you've got neuropathy." And I said, "Okay." And then they said, "Oh, and by the way, we found a tumor in your brain." I said, "Really? Oh my God." And he said, "We're doing tests now. We'll see if it's okay." So it ended up being benign, but I got it removed through my nose. So this is all October. Sorry, this is all 2019. Also, the release of Loss the same year, right? So then
Yeah.
by the time we got to October the 5th, I'm having a jam with John and UPF acoustic band that I was putting together. And uh, I came home, I started eating a sandwich, and then I started regurgitating it, and I started getting dry reaching, and I'm trying not to be too graphic, but I just was having nausea. And in the morning, I was worse. So Cheryl, my wife at that time, rang me for an ambulance, and the they said when they picked me up that I was having a heart attack. And I went and had an angiogram, and two of my arteries were blocked. So then that happened. So I had a triple bypass. And then in 2020, because I was then scheduled to play Rosfest again, I got cancer in January of 2020, and it was from the bowel, but it was early stages. That was in not had rooted in the bowel. It actually just sat on the top of the polyp. So I had that removed, and then you thought it was going to end then, but it goes on. We end. Obviously, COVID hit, so we were isolated. So obviously, Rosfest didn't happen. And as 2021 moved along and to 2022, I ended up with big uh, kidney stones, half the size of a golf ball, and both sides of my kidneys. And I was in hospital. And this was when the terrible news of my wife saying to me that she wanted to be alone. And so that ended my marriage after 40 years as well. So I had a very terrible last those years, and then
Yeah.
things picked up. But let's go back to where you were. So yes, so Unit DB, we recorded it. It will come out as a Blu-ray one day,
Yeah.
and maybe a live album as well. But it's a great show, and the response was amazing. We surprised so many people because people saw us in the venue and they said, "There's Sean Timms. Oh, look, there's Mark Trueack. Unitopia must be playing." No, they're not on the bill. Oh, maybe they've come to watch. And of course, no one knew who Unit DB was. and it was made up of the name of United Progressive, Unitopia, um, and DB was Danny and Brody. So it was like we had this
Wow.
combination. So that's how it all came about.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
exclusives for you, my friend.
Thank you very much, man. That a particular album, Lost and Hope, you have a lot of great people playing there, man. With
Yes.
Steve Hackett, Jerry Marotta, Colin,
Yeah,
Nick,
yeah,
Chris,
yeah.
John,
Look,
Lisa Wetton as well. Yeah.
it was always my intention before we did the idea of putting Unitopia songs as a UPF thing. It was my intention in the beginning to actually do what I did with Loss and Hope. So what you see is when we may release best of with two new songs or something like that, but it'll be like Love, Loss, and Hope, the trilogy, right?
Yeah.
So, but working with Steve Hackett on each of these albums was a pleasure. Jerry Marotta's just a gentle, beautiful soul.
Yeah.
When I gave him the last track, he said, "This is really interesting." He said, "I'm going to enjoy doing this," and I got Claire Vizina, and if people don't know her, she's a French Canadian, and she was a pop songstress, and she was signed to Sony, and she sang in French, and you'd almost call her progressive pop, but she sings beautiful French words on "Fall in Love with the World," and also trying to remember the song, can't remember it right now. But anyway, the artists that I invited, I always said to them,
Mm.
whether they were known or unknown, because Steve would say to me, he goes, "What do you want me to do?" And I go, "I want you to put your stamp of style on how you would play this arrangement." And he said, "Oh, okay, so free, do whatever I like." And I would say that to every single person. I, to me, I'm not a true musician as such. I'm a lyricist and I'm an ideas man. But I understand that those people that are around me are really good musicians, and they, should be entitled to put their stance on a particular product. Although I've got to say, when I'm doing the romantics with Chris LeBled, Chris would send me an arrangement, and I would instantaneously press record and record whatever comes out of my mouth. And 99% of the time when I've worked with his stuff, it's happened straight away. And
Wow.
I love Chris LeBled, as I love Steve Unruh and everybody else. But there's something unique about the way we go about it. And of course, he's worked with John, and he has a relationship with him. But to me, I, when I'm doing a project like UPF, I see that as a very special, meaningful project. I mean, Ted Alikala, who was my right hand man, he's given away music now. He doesn't want to do music anymore, which is fair enough. But he was passionate about the project as he was one of the directors as well, and he would incorporate all these wonderful presentations from David Attenborough and David Suzuki and Dr. Goodall. There's a montage of great ecologists and environmentalists, and I care and share about, like everybody, I would hope, about this planet. We've got to stop destroying it.
I'm
It's
with you,
so
man.
sad. It's so sad. When I've got a roof over my head, but there are thousands in Thailand that don't. I mean, I'm seeing poverty here, not as extensive as, say, India and some of the other Indonesian countries and other Chinese areas. But there's poverty in every country, but sometimes it's more noticeable than others, and yeah, that's a very sad situation.
No, I'm completely I'm with you. Any possibility of uh releasing a new album down the road, UPF? I mean, people like
Uh,
Utopia, people like UPF, people, you
yeah,
know.
well, I mean, Steve and I said that we weren't going to do any more, but if you weren't aware, I suppose the closest thing to it is that I wrote an EP called Save Us, and it
Yeah,
came out this year, February the 1st. And what I can say is that that focuses pretty much on the issues of misunderstanding of what can happen when a country does something wrong and it affects another country,
yeah,
and how we have these challenges of trying to fix these things. I wrote Save Us and met Patrick Moraz in America,
yeah,
and I asked him if he would be interested in doing a a song with me with regards, because the actual flood was happening while we were at Progstock in New York. So when I met with Patrick, I asked him, and then when I got back from that tour 4 weeks later, I rang him and we jammed on the phone. It was a lot of fun. He was playing his piano and I was singing along, and he goes, "Are you making that up?" And I go, "Yeah." He said, "Wow, wow." He says, "I've got some ideas." And anyway, he sent the ideas to Steve, because Steve engineered Save Us, and Steve plays on Save Us along with Chester and John Greenwood and Don Schiff and Jamison Smelts and many others. And the thing is that you're asking the question about UPF. United Progressive Fraternity is a fraternity of musicians, and I suppose, if another word, friends, really, at the end of the day. And so I called it Mark Trueack and Friends, this particular EP. So if we do something, it might be one or two songs, and we might do a best of. I always said it was Lisa Wetton's idea. She said, "Truey, why don't you do a rock opera?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "With UPF, because the subject matter is so right now. It's important." And I said, "Well, be a good idea, but if someone could raise the money to do it, I suppose anything could happen. I mean, it would be like, be no different than doing, a Phantom at the Opera. I mean, that's just so well known across the world. But a rock opera like the Queen rock opera, there's many that have been done. Tommy, Quadrophenia, there's a whole swag of things. So, and War of the Worlds is on right now. So, it could easily happen, and I could visualize it, I could direct it, but I don't think I would sing on it. I think I would get professionals, and what I mean professionals, the people know and have different vocalists for different things, and you could do two shows as just one-offs, and if it worked, well, then you do another and another and so forth. But
yeah.
so there's your answer with UPF at this point.
Okay. Maybe with a GoFundMe account or a Patreon where people all over the world that
There
are
is a
friend of
go.
Unitopia and all can contribute,
Yeah, well, there is a GoFundMe for the Save Us, but look, it's stopped now, and I appreciate every single baht, because I use the word baht because that's our currency here, that's been donated. And I have a print of Ed Unitsky's called Lady of the Lake, and what it is a new vision of what the little girl on the lily pond on the garden has grown up into a lady. So it's called Lady on the Lake. And this
Yeah.
print is a one off. And I would love to donate it to the restaurant by raising funds for it. But I just haven't got around to it. I'm actually smack right in the middle of new Unitopia music, and
Yeah.
also another solo album, and about to launch my new solo album, which is coming out in October.
Wow. Feel free to elaborate about the new YouTube. You mentioned three things: the new Utopia
Okay, so
and the
the
new.
new Unitopia we've
Yeah,
got coming is that we've written um, two, three, four, five songs, and I've written
yeah,
one which I'm not sure I want to go on the Unitopia, but Steve wants the name of that song, which is called Women of Thailand. And I've already put an arrangement together with Dave Burchards, and it's quite very, very big and bold. It's unusual, but at the same time, it means. But so there's that. But John's written a brilliant song, and I won't go too much. If I give too much away, I'll have to be shot. Um, uh, and Sean's written one. So the tentative title for this new album is called 6 to 1.
okay,
It's
yeah,
so we've all writing a song each. Don's written
that's
one,
right.
John's written
Yeah,
one, and so uh, two of them are epic. Steve's 20 minutes, Sean's is 20 minutes, and they're quite different. But I can tell you, one of the songs is a sequel, and I may have even mentioned it, to Tesla, which is called
I see,
Edison.
I see, I see, I see. And you mentioned,
Now that, and so then I've got that, and then I've got a new, really, I've written all the lyrics
yeah,
and all of the vocal arrangements I've done with a collaboration with Peter Lazar and another chap, which his name eludes me because I've not met him yet, but we've been working together. Can you work that out? And it's called Seven Deadly Sins.
yeah.
And I will, after this, we should just make contact. I will send you a sneak peek of this
Thank you very
album.
much. Yeah, thank you very much.
And I'll also send you a sneak peek of the one I'm going to talk about now called Journey's Groove,
Yeah.
An Adventure in Life, which is a snapshot of my music, my life, and Sean has put the arrangements together on my behalf, on my direction, and I've written all of the lyrics, and the stories are true. And they start off, as an example, in 1959. I remember being bullied at the top of the hill by all of my street mates because I didn't have a go kart. And so the story goes that I cried every day that it happened until my dad took me out to the shed one day and said, "Here you go and take those guys out." And he built a go kart made out of an ironing board.
Wow,
Yes,
it's a good
very
story, man.
funny. And the song was the music is sort of the era of the style of that jazz sound at the time, you know. And so it's very jazzy, but it has a bit of psychedelic in there as well. But a lot of the songs are very groove orientated. And as you'll hear when I send it to you,
Thank you very
you'll
much.
like it. And so that's just one snap part of the snap. So it starts at 59 and goes all the way up to now. So the cover is done by Ed Unitsky, as he's done the EP and he's done Unitopia, UPF,
Yeah,
and he's done this new album. And I'm working on one now, the next big thing, which is called Breaking Down the Barriers. I'm 6 songs in on that one, and that'll be out next year. So I'm
yeah,
trying to do as many as I can before I can't do any at all. That's how I'm looking at it.
yeah. Good for you. I forgot to mention the album for 2021 titled Seven Chambers.
Right. Well, let's go back then a little step. And what a wonderful uh, story that is. I mean, when I introduced John to Sean, I got John to present him Broken Heart. Now, we didn't really have a name for it right there and then. John and I were writing stories of what happened to me and my problems, and John added his words of things, because being a physician and, a doctor at the highest level, he just knew everything there was to know about the human body. And so the story came about where I spoke to a chap about an idea which would be something along the lines of, should write a song or write an album about what's happened to us, because Sean also had a heart attack, and Don's had issues, Chester's had issues, I've got back issues still, and that's another story. But and Steve's had cancer, hence a song called The Uncertain. And the beauty of The Uncertain is that it delves into, you know, you just don't know if you're going to survive something like a cancer. And it happened to me, and it's happened to Steve. And Steve's is still in limbo. I mean, I'm still getting regular checkups, but he's in remission right now, and that's a great place to be. And he gets checked regularly. So far so good. But we wrote this, and John's input was so valuable, because he knew, he knew exactly the right words to put in. He writes very well. If you haven't heard any of his solo albums, The Boy
Yeah.
and Dark Blue are stunning albums. And you know, having six guys who all just love music and no egos. It's all about working and making the best possible music you can and being unique. I mean, that is so hard to do. So many bands can be so much sounding like someone else, and it's the same old. But you've got
Yeah.
to try and break different barriers. You've got, and it's really difficult. So Seven Chambers was just such a wonderful experience making, and this was also during the time when I broke away from my wife and I moved to Thailand as well. So that was a massive change for me, and finding new love was also, very different, and understanding cultures, and then keeping that in mind, and then speaking to Sean regularly. I need to do this, and then if I was back in Australia, I'd go and do a couple of sessions with him, and we catch up. So the whole Seven Chambers experience, making each song mania. I mean, it's about bipolar. Um, you know, uh, I've got many friends who suffer from bipolar, and it makes you realize what the hell they go through, unless you've had it yourself. Um, you know, uh, the song Bittersweet is about diabetes. And obviously, I've got diabetes, but John is working on a cure for type 1 diabetes, and he's having
Wow.
some success. And see, that's
Yeah.
another story. And so, you've got all of these ideas that you put in a pot and go, well, John's experience of the stroke of midnight, which we wrote some lines together and individually, before we introduced them to Sean. And that was developed. And the idea of a great, amazing story that happened at Progstock was we actually played The Stroke of Midnight at midnight because we were late coming on. That shouldn't have happened, but it did. So that was very eerie when we started playing and people were looking at their watches and they're going, how do they do that? So that was quite funny. But uh, the song itself tells a story of a patient of John's collapsing and exactly at midnight, and that from a stroke. And so it's a true story. So that apart from Helen, and Helen is about a pioneer who developed a cure for familimide, and so we had the uncertain. We had Helen's a big long song, and then I had this song ready to go for Hope called Something Invisible, and I played it to Sean, which had a different arrangement to it, and he said, "Oh, I like this. This is good. We got to do something with this." And so that song obviously is about discovering something after the event because all along you've had a problem like a cancer or you've had an ulcer and it's invisible. You don't see it and you don't know it's there. And, so all the songs had definite, strong meanings. And it's interesting, the people who got the album straight away just absolutely loved it because they understood it. The people who didn't listen to it and made comments but just didn't understand, that's what lets us down because we're trying to explain exactly our own ordeals on what happened to us. And, from our point of view, it was something that we wanted to express and hopefully pick it up. We had people in the audience, I remember in the Netherlands, that came up after, he said, God, that really hit the nerve. I got that. And they'd never heard the Seven Chambers until that night live. And so that's
Yeah.
what makes it special when you do get across to someone and they come up and they get the message. That's very humbling, and it means that great writing from the great band that we have. Sean's a great director of the music, and John's innovative mind, Steve's innovative mind, Chester's charisma and his incredible talent, and Don's probably, for me, one of the most underrated bass players on the planet, and he's played with Elvis Presley. I mean,
Wow.
we're talking someone who's played with, and he was quite young. He's the same age as me, but he played with him. He's played with Raquel Welch because she released albums, and he played on that. And
That's
he's
right.
played with Anne Margaret, and there's a whole montage of other artists. So he's well worth listening to, and he's a great guy. Like, let me tell you, traveling with those guys was like I had sore ribs. It was a wonder I could sing after being with them in the car. The stories, the fun, the humor, it was just incredible. That's why I think Chester had such a great time, is because he just couldn't stop laughing at some of our silliness. We were very silly.
Yeah. Yeah. He's, yeah, Chester is a quiet guy, but it's funny guy too. It's I think for him is hard to open up at the beginning because
Yes.
when he was with Genesis, he was like a higher gun, right? Like
Yes.
you mentioned before, he wasn't one of the Genesis guys, if you will, and he was very quiet, and his humor is an American humor is very different from the British
Yeah,
humor.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
he felt
That's why
weird
it was
at the
good.
corner. But with you
That's
guys,
why it was,
hanging out with you guys was very different, right?
yeah, yeah, but that's why it was good. And just on Chester, I saw today that they're going to release on Blu-ray a new Frank Zappa live, which has never been seen before, and Chester's in that band.
Wow, good for him, man.
Hmm.
Good for
I
him.
don't
Good
know
for
if
him.
he knows. I'll have to contact him and let him know.
Yeah, let him know. Any possibility of you guys playing live here in the United States at all, or in
Well,
Europe?
we played Prog Stock uh, in 23, and we played Monforty Manor, but there's every chance it's what we need. So if you've got a few fans out there and maybe they know someone, we need a decent tour manager. If we could have a decent tour manager who could do the costings, get us what we need to get us to the places, because I know Spain, oh, Greece, Italy, again, many countries, Sweden want us to play in their country, but it's all about money. And
Yeah.
look, I don't earn anything these days. I'm on a pension. I have a little bit of money tucked away, but a little bit of royalty that comes in, it's not enough to feed the family. And at the end of the day, if we do something, I've never been paid on a gig ever.
Really?
Yeah, I've always done it for free
Why? If you don't mind.
because I was working.
Oh, I can't. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
No, but
I
you
looked at
need.
it. Yeah, I just always thought that keep the costs down,
Mm, mm,
and we can pay the people that need to be paid. That's how I looked at it.
mm.
And I've got to tell you that as much as and if I had more money than I needed, I wouldn't ask for a fee. But if people want us to go and they want, I mean, I've just spoken to a friend of mine over in Italy, and she's trying to organise for both Chester and me to play our albums as a joint double act. Because Chester's got his album, and I've
Kiss
got my
back.
new
Yeah,
jazz album, which you're going to hear very
mm,
soon.
yeah,
And the thing is that if we play Italy, that'll have to be properly costed so that I'm covered, even if it's just a plane trip and food and drink. I don't care. I won't ask for any other money as long as I can have a good time. That's how I look at it. But the
yeah,
rest, the rest of the band, like Chester, would need to be paid, and so with Jamison and Don, and if I get Sean to do, because Sean knows the arrangements, he's a great music director, so
yeah.
he's the ideal guy to have on board because he can
Mm,
play the piano and do the keys, but he can also direct it and arrange everything the way that I like it as well. So.
yeah. Maybe if you were to put together like a Patreon
Yeah,
system to,
actually,
to
Sean's
collect
already.
money until
Yeah, well,
10,000 or
Sean's.
whatever to cover that.
Yeah, well, Sean came up with that idea, but nothing. It's just that we don't have management, and we're all doing things.
Sure, sure.
We do need. I mean, we're at an age probably. Maybe I've got 3, 4 years left if I could do touring. If I mean, I'm not 100% sure because my back's gone and I have to use a stool. I don't want to use a full seat. But
Yeah,
since I had a new artificial disc put in last year because I fell down the stairs, um, I would love to be able to stand and move around like I did. Although I've got to tell you, back in 2010, you would notice that I have a hunch, and that's because my back was already stuffed back then. I mean, I'd had 3 operations on my back before the tour. So anyway, I hope one day I can meet you, and I hope we can
same
do
here, man.
another show in America.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
we would love that. It really depends on how many people buy the albums, I suppose. That's probably how you got to look at
Yeah.
it.
How you guys doing Badcam? You do okay? You sell a lot of CDs,
Well,
vinyl,
I
or
don't know. I don't know because we don't get regular updates from the record label,
I see.
and I won't go into that. But um, I can tell you that Inside Out has still got control of it, and they've also got control of Artificial, and I think it ends sometime September. I'm not 100% sure, but I will find out. And when that happens, we'll have full control of both. We've got control of More Than a Dream, but
Yeah,
we will have control of The Garden and Artificial, and we already control Covered Mirror and also One Night in Europe. So yeah, that's really it at this point.
Yeah, I was listening to the album last night, Alive and Kicking, Unitopia Live
Yes.
24 bit.
Yeah. What did
It's
what
an
did you
excellent
think?
album, man. It's very, very good, man.
Yeah. Do you
Some they
think
gotta be
it's
a
very good
it's very,
live?
very good. They gotta be a promoter and a tour manager that take care of you guys. Took
Well,
you to
yeah,
some festival. I mean, you guys are
well,
very good, man.
well, the thing is that you release a live album to show that we what we can do.
That's right.
And you know, I would call our music in some ways very poetic. And I suppose someone said to me, he said, you know what? When you're sitting down, it's like you're telling stories and you're not throwing your body around like a Peter Gabriel or something, and you're doing something that's a little different. And I said, well, I would prefer to be moving around because I love to dance, to be honest with you. In fact,
Yeah,
if the music came on now, I could get up, dance probably for about 10 minutes, then I'd have to sit down because my back is killing me. But what I'm getting at is that I think the Alive and Kicking album is a very, very good album. And I think there are a lot of live albums out there, and some are good and some are excellent, and then there's some that are not so good. The sound quality's not done right, and so forth. We're fortunate that we have uh, great engineers like Steve, and even to a point, John, but and Sean, of course. Sean is a great engineer, and Sean didn't engineer this one. He engineered one night in Europe,
yeah,
but Alive
yeah.
and Kicking was done by Steve, and he did an excellent job,
Yeah.
excellent. And John Vi, who did all the camera work there. I mean, there's a lot of cameras there. It was great. Um, you know what everybody would not realize, both Chester and I'm not sure about the rest of the guys, but Chester and I were in a great deal of pain. Um, and I think if I look at Chester now, Chester's got stronger. It was only 6 weeks before he just had an operation and then 6 weeks recovery. And then we thought, nah, we're going to need a new drummer to play this live show. No, Chester was determined, and he just nailed it. And I mean, he's not hitting the power that he normally would, but I tell you what, timing and everything about he did his homework, and he's excellent. And and he suffered in pain. And if when someone said to me the other day, they looked at it and they said, "Truey, you look like." You put a lot of expression into the songs. You could see it on your face. And I said, that face was pain, real pain. So I took the song and allowed myself to engulf the pain and project it with the words that I'm singing.
Mm.
And hopefully it came across like that.
I did, man. I really like the album. I was, putting question for this debut together, and I listened to the majority of the album, and you guys are great, man. You need to be playing live somewhere. There gotta be a tour manager promoted that will take you to a couple of festivals because you still are alive and kicking, so to speak.
Well, I'll tell you what, after that, you should be our tour manager.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Maybe, people are very well connected. I mean, a good person will
Well,
be
that's what I'm saying to you.
Stephen
That's
Wilson will be a good person, too.
Yeah, no, but he's got. I actually, believe it or not, I asked Steve Wilson in
Yeah,
2010 would he produce the next album, but what his words were, "I'm just about to start working on the King Crimson back catalogue,
yeah,
putting them into new
yeah,
sound, stereo sound." So, no, we need a proper tour manager who understands. And if look, if I leave that with you and you contact me and say, "Hey, I think I found someone,"
yeah,
introduce me. Oh, I'd love to hear because
yeah,
it just has to be costed properly. It
yeah,
wasn't done right, and the person who did it were not trained to do it. They did it through the goodness of their heart, and that's great. But I just say this: we won't go out unless we're covered because we lost money. John lost money. I lost money. And it's no good. Big Train lost 40,000 on their tour. And we've asked him, the guy who does the tour manager, to come and do us. But unfortunately, we just don't hear back. And he said he was interested, but we haven't heard. So we have.
40,000 in the later tour. He was playing here in the US last week.
That's
Big Train.
right. That's right. And he's the tour manager that's bringing them and so
Okay.
forth. But they lost 40,000 on their last tour.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's very tough.
It costs money. I mean, you think about it, if you airline tickets, from from here, it's probably the cheapest of all of them. But you've got, you're going to end up with about, let's say, $12,000 worth of airline tickets. Then you've got to pay, and then you've got to pay, anywhere between 500 to 1,500 for the band each, and that's per gig. And so then you've got to think about all that, and then you've got your merch and how that's organized, and it's got to be properly counted, and it's got to be properly presented, and it's got to be profitable. And then you go into some venues, they want to take some of that percentage away from you. I mean, it really, at the end of the day, it's a very difficult industry to be involved with. And as I said, if we won the lottery, $30 million, we'd be on a plane now to your house to play in your backyard.
That would be great. Yeah, I will send a couple emails because I'm in touch with another musician, and I would ping Steve Hackett, and I would ping my friend from Roxy Music, Phil Manzanera, and I know so many musicians through the interview. So, and I know some book promoter, and I know here where I live in the Washington D.C. area, I know most of the owners of clubs.
Well, let me just say this: if you get us a good tour manager and it works and it sets it up, we'll do one specific show in your backyard as an acoustic.
That would be great.
That's the deal.
Thank you very much. Well, I will try my best. I will send an email because I know
all you can do. That's all you can do is try.
It was very nice talking to you, Mark, man. Good luck with everything.
Okay, listen. Can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Can you send me? Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, and I will send you my email and everything. Don't worry, I will take care of it.
Yeah, no, do that, because then I'll send you some real sneak previews, and I'd love for you to give me some feedback.
Okay, I will listen. Yeah, and I will ask. I know the tour manager of Peter Gabriel as well, because I'm going to Real World Studios for a couple of classes in July as well, and so I will send an email. Yeah, I'm in touch with so many people.
He's got his new album coming out at the end of the year called OI.
Yeah, Peter Gabriel's always working in the stuff.
No, but his new album is called OI. Yeah, it's a new album coming out. It's back to front to IO. He's done another album called OI, and he's doing his final farewell tour.
I didn't know
and
that.
I can't believe you didn't know that.
Well, yeah, so I exchanged a couple email with Tony Levin, because in a couple months ago, at the end of February, Peter Gabriel sent an email to Rose and Tony and all the crew, and they went back to Real World Studios, and they were working new material, but nobody knows what they were working on. And so maybe that's
Well, they'd already had some songs ready, but they didn't want to bring them on the tour. And all they're doing now is fine-tuning them all and getting them ready for OI.
Yeah. Oh, man, I didn't know that. So the tour 2026?
I love IO. No, this year.
Yeah.
This year. At the end of the year.
Summer?
I read there was an article. Go on his website. Go and have a look.
Yeah. I will check it out, man. Oh, wow.
All right.
thank
Well,
you.
don't forget to send me your info. And then look, I've loved talking to you. You're a wonderful man.
You too.
And it's always good to tell stories. I've got many, many, many adventure stories, and you'll hear them on the
Maybe
new
we will
album.
do a follow up in a couple of weeks, and we'll do part 2 and part 3. So if you end up writing a book one day, you can listen to my accent and listen to.
Yes, yes. Let's do that. I mean, at the end of the day, once you've heard Journey's groove, we could
Yeah,
do a bit of a, and then I can break into breaking down the barriers and really tell you more about that album as well.
that's right. Yeah, that's what I want to hear, man. Well, it's very
All
nice
right.
talking to you, Mark, man. Good
See you,
luck to you
buddy.
with your health, your back, and everything, and hopefully the Refton will be alive and kicking again, hopefully soon.
Good on you, my friend. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you
Bye
very much.
bye now.
Appreciate it.
Bye.